Hey there, welcome to the Oz Shift Podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Trucks. Today's guest is a man named Rob Luna. Now, Rob Luna is he's actually the founder of the Wealth Academy, and he's a guy who's got a whole lot of cool background and story. He's gone through a lot in life, but here's the big focus of his. It's helping individuals who, might have $100 to your name find out how to build wealth, meaning like millions of dollars to your name or a business that you can create and build, because he's done this for himself and for a lot of clients over time. And to be honest, we talk about it briefly, but in life, man, as much as we'd like to be like, I don't want to focus on money. Money creates difference in life. It's a facilitator for impact. It's a facilitator for joy. Not that it makes you happy, but it allows you to do things for people to really have a cool life. We live in this world that we need to be able to fund the dreams that we have. And so he talks about how to do it in a genuine way as a man of faith, as I am myself. I love the way his heart is focused on what he does. And he's going to unpack for you a couple different things you can apply right now to move yourself in the right direction. So without further ado, let's hop into the episode, Rob. Hello. Welcome back into the show. We're here with Mr. Rob Luna, who you've already heard about. Here's a cool thing. We're going to unpack some things for you that are tied to a world that I navigated, which is like the world of trying to figure out who the heck are you? How do you build a career, eventually build a business? If that's something you want to hear about, tune in. But without further ado, welcome to the show, Rob. How you doing, man?
Anthony, I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you. Well, I'm happy to have you here, man. I'm serious. I've got a little feeling of I'm gonna have a good conversation with you because you seem like a decent dude. So let's do this. Conversation always starts in this podcast with one question. You can answer it however you choose to answer it. Here's how it works. I'm walking around town. I sit down at a coffee shop. I sit next to this cool guy. That cool guy is you. I don't know you. You don't know me. For some reason, you feel compelled to turn and start talking to me. In your opinion, why should I listen to you?
In my opinion, should you listen to me?
Why should I listen to you?
Oh, why should you listen to me? I think because I'm like most people. I'm like the average person out there. Most people don't start with a silver spoon in their mouth. Everybody's trying to get to a point where they can take care of their family. And so I feel like I've come from a position where most people can relate to. Mm-hmm. I've just had the fortune enough to meet some very successful people, get thrown into a path early on in life where I was able to learn a lot of lessons ahead of the curve to put myself in a position to do that at an early age. So I think that's some of the information that I could share. So where you're not one of those people that say, I wish I knew then what I know now, to try to expedite some of those hard lessons for you.
I like it, man. The world needs that, right? It's called mentors. It's called coaches. It's called guidance. It's always a necessity. Oh, are you still there? I don't know if I can see. Maybe you can hear me, but maybe the video just cut out.
I'm here. Yeah, I could hear you. I just don't see you.
Oh, don't worry about it. It'll catch back up later. As you guys are listening or watching this, like, hey, you don't even notice because the way Riverside, our little platform works. But here's the thing. Give me some of these moments, right? Because I agree. It's always good to be able to bypass some lessons. What are some of the earliest lessons you learned that kind of even like directed you towards the world you live in now?
Yeah, well, you know what? I fell into the world of finance kind of out of luck. I grew up from pretty poor background. Sports brought me to college, and I got my first internship at a wealth management firm when I was 20 years of age. So I started learning about a lot of these things from very wealthy people of how they built their wealth. And it really came down to what I saw over 24 years for a few different things. Number one, which you know a little bit about, Anthony, a lot of those people were very successful professional athletes. Number two, they were people who achieved a very high level in corporate America, that's C-suite. Or number three, and the vast majority of them were entrepreneurs. So I learned at an early age, you need to be able to fit yourself into one of those molds if you really want to achieve the type of wealth that most people want to accumulate.
Well, now, what's the variance between these kind of, to not say these kind? So when I look at the world, there's a brand I have called Dark Work, and kind of the demographic I've chosen to go serve highly is athletes, executives, entrepreneurs, which they kind of all have a, in your head, when you hear that, what are some of the differences? Because I know I got executive clients. I'm not an executive. I work with these amazing people. I was an athlete, work with athletes. I'm an entrepreneur, right? So I know the flow, but I'm curious from your perspective and your interaction with these people, what kind of makes them different?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the thing is, Anthony, it's funny because we share the same demographic of athletes, entrepreneurs, and C-suite executives. They all have a lot of the same commonalities. It's that strict discipline, huge drive, and they're willing to do whatever it takes to get to that next level. And I feel whether you're an athlete, entrepreneur, or senior level executive, that's what it's going to take. And, it's, obviously when you look at the statistics, very hard to become a professional athlete, but almost equally hard to become a C-suite professional at a major corporation or a successful entrepreneur. So I think in terms of differentiation, there are some, but I think they all have a lot more commonality. And I was telling you before we got on here, in wealth management, I worked with a lot of professional athletes and entrepreneurs, but every one of those athletes eventually became an entrepreneur. They didn't want to leave the NFL or MLB and go work for somebody. They wanted to build something themselves and have some control over it.
Same way I was, man. I came out, I worked at a gym for like a week, and I was like, I don't want a boss. So I opened my own gym. I almost lost the gym a couple of times, man. I was not good in business in the beginning to navigate this. But I do know people that get to a level of experience always have some, moments of, we'll call it massive failures, kind of just how the natural part of it all works. Maybe not massive, but enough to kind of push us. What are some of the ones that you faced early on that gave you the ability to go like, no, I'm going to lead people in this?
Yeah, I think early on, I think it's overconfidence. I think a lot, I got into financial services in the late 90s. And so for anyone who was investing during that time, or you read any books, we had the big internet boom during that time. And so there's a lot of professional day traders out there. It's kind of, you just throw a dart at any technology stock, anything with .com in its name, and you're going to make a lot of money. And so I feel like I had a lot of early success, which was actually a problem. It led me to believe that I had greater success and skill sets than I really had. And when the market crashed in 2000, 2001, I lost a lot of money. And it was really through that lesson that I learned about defense and risk management. And throughout the rest of my career, I always put risk management first, especially dealing with wealthy people. They weren't so interested in how much money can I make, but how do I keep and maintain this lifestyle to where if something goes wrong, I'm not back working again. So I think that was an early lesson to understand humility. And understand that more than likely, like myself, most people are going to learn more from the mistakes that they make in business from the actual home runs or wins that they get.
No, I agree, man. I think you have to have those. I think it might have been Bill Gates or someone had some statement, one of those, big, tech CEOs or something like, honestly, success can be the worst thing for you because it lulls you to sleep, makes you think you're amazing. And then all of a sudden you get hit in the mouth. And you're like, oh, damn, wasn't prepared for that. What's one of the greatest lessons you learned from that window, though? Because obviously you came back, right? Now I'm sure everybody came back in that manner, right? But you were able to kind of push back towards something. What's one of the earliest, I call it an awe shift moment, by the way. This is an awe shift podcast. This is an awe shift moment. What's one of the lessons that you learned in that, we'll call that specific moment you applied quickly to get to the point of like moving forward out of that hole?
Yeah, it was more risk management. It was understanding going into everything and looking at what are the possible outcomes, what are the things that can go wrong. And look, when you go all in on one thing and you put all your bets and all your eggs in one basket, yes, if you hit a home run, it's great. But the problem is why most people get into real estate or stock investing or whatever it is and have kind of this bad taste left in their mouth is because they don't play defense. They go all in, they get over leveraged, they don't have a contingency plan. So one thing I learned very early on was to make sure that you had a contingency plan, things like having your emergency fund, taking care of those boring things that nobody talks about in entrepreneurship, but making sure that you've kind of got your safety fence on before you start going out there and trying to be a cowboy in business.
Gotcha. What about people just starting though, man? Because I look back to the days when I was going, it's like give everything. At one point I ran a live event and I think it cost like $60,000 to put it on. I went into the event with $1,500 in my bank account. Like I was like, this is all I'm gonna do. That's probably not the way to do it. Now we came out, we were highly profitable, so it worked out. But I was like, I was in that back room about to pitch the program, like we got to get this because if not, I can't pay rent next month. And so but then, you climb and you build to where now, obviously my wife and I are very wise what we do. We live well below our means and everything. It blossoms.
Yep.
What is the, man, how do you talk to that for a person that goes, man, I'm just starting out. I'm month to month with this business. Like what's the mentality they should have then? And then how do they build into what you're talking about?
Well, Anthony, I think one of the earliest investments, kind of backing up a little bit, I'm talking about a little bit later in my career where I started playing risk management and playing that for clients who have already achieved a certain level of success. But I think that's a great question because we all start somewhere. And, when I started in wealth management, they said, get on the phone, Rob, and call all the wealthy people you knew. And that lasted about 2 seconds because I didn't know anybody. So when you start about accumulating wealth, if you're coming from nothing, you're starting from scratch. I do believe that is a point in time where you have to go all in. You have to take some risk. However, I think the first investment that you need to make before you do that, and that sounds really sexy and appealing to all entrepreneurs, go all in, max your credit cards in, have full faith in everything that you're doing. And that does work. But if you haven't made that basic investment in yourself to understand what is my value proposition, who is my client, how am I going to be able to deliver a service or a speech or whatever it is that's going to be able to impact their lives greater than anyone else, and I've been able to do that because I've invested in myself, then you're really not going to succeed. So as cool as that sounds, if you haven't made those investments, it's not going to do well. So I would say early on, go to school, get mentors, whatever it is, read books, YouTube. It's a lot easier now. There's no excuse for not being educated. Make sure you take some time to educate yourself. Don't just get on Instagram, hear one story and say, hey, okay, I'm ready to be the professional. And I would think, even though you did that, Anthony, you went to college, you had some basic foundation that set you up for success, that looking from the outside in, oh, Anthony did it. But there's a lot of work and discipline and education that you had prior to making, taking on that risk.
Oh yeah, man, 100%. I didn't have any actual business sense though. I started a business with no business acumen, no idea what I was doing. And that was one of the reasons why within 9 months, I was getting served with eviction notice papers and had to find a way out, which I did. I got a good coach, a great mentor who kind of and it's funny. You kind of tell yourself I've done everything. It's not going to work. And it's no, you've usually just done what you know, right? Or what you're willing to do. You haven't given what you don't want to give yet. What do you say to people in that space where I'm sure people come to you and go, look, I've tried everything. It's not going to work. In the back of your head, there's another action they can take, or maybe they're not taking the right actions. How do you guide people through those sticky points?
Yeah, well, I think, look, as you said, you didn't really have any business acumen. And I think as you go on, you were able to develop that. And I think one of the things we talked about earlier about mentorship, education, what we're all trying to solve for is what we've all said at one point in time in our life. I've said it. You've probably said it. Wow. If I only knew then what I knew now, I wouldn't have gone 2 years or 5 years or 10 years of making these same mistakes. And so what I try to really do is take my education experience working, for myself, for other people, and try to just kind of do a SWOT analysis to see, okay, what are the things that you're doing? Is it operationally where you're having problems? Is it for the financials? Is it the value proposition? Is it not that you're hiring the right people? And that's the thing. I think the great thing I talked about earlier about YouTube is you could find just about anything. There's no excuse not to be educated. And I think if you just spend that time looking at profitable businesses, looking at business structures, and kind of seeing where are the holes in my game? Am I complete? Do I have a 365 perspective of how to succeed? There's probably going to be areas in my game that I'm still trying to improve today. But the great news is there's so many resources out there, books, YouTube videos, podcasts like yours, that people can consume to find the information that they might not have for some of those deficiencies that they have in their game.
I agree, man. It's I think we have an onslaught of information that's readily available. I full-heartedly agree. You know what I find out? Those people are ask holes. They ask a lot of questions, don't do anything with it. Or man, they gobble up insight. But I'm sure you'll attest to this. The true lesson you need to learn happens on a path of action. You can read all the books you want. You're not going to connect. If I tell you, hey, whenever you go to swing a baseball bat, you got to grip it here and do. You're like, okay, you hear it.
Yeah.
It's not the batter's box. You go, oh damn, I get it. When my hips, the extra pieces. How do you get people into motion? Because I'm gotta expect it in some part of your life. You've met some people who asked a question a year later, asked the same question. Bro, what'd you do the last 12 months? How do you get people into motion and moving in your own mind?
Yeah, it's a great perspective, man. And I completely agree. And I think that's the problem. And I think, a lot of people read or you go to these events that I speak at. I'm sure you've spoken at them where it's dude, I think I've spoken at 5 events over the last 6 months, different locations, areas. You've been at every single one of them and you haven't done anything. And I think that's the problem. A lot of people showing up to these events, they're reading books, but they're not taking action. And you said it, you've got to find a way immediately to put action into work. Look, when I did my undergrad, Anthony, dude, I had no idea what I was doing, what I was looking to do. Undergrad for me, well, I guess it was good, but I didn't learn much, to be honest. But when I went back to grad school, I was 38 years old. I already had a business for 10 years. I had some issues I was struggling on. So when I started consuming information at that point in time that actually I could implement on a day-to-day basis within my business, I started to see that information and action together were really the power to move things forward. So I think for most people, and I talk about this in my book, if you are working for somebody else, if you're doing something so that you don't want, start small, start a side hustle, start something where it might not be the business that takes off, but it could be the business that lays the groundwork for the next successful venture that you have. I was going to be a sports agent in college. I was going to represent rappers and athletes and all these things. I started my own business, had a great business card and all these things, and failed miserably. But through that failure and action, I learned some of the things that I needed to learn. And so a lot of my life, even my first wealth management firm that I started, I had a lot of trials and tribulations before I started to hit that level of success. But everything that I learned and I continue to consume and learn, I was also putting into a plan of action. And that plan of action will give you immediate feedback of, is it working? Do you got it? Do you got to figure it out, or do you need any more? So I couldn't agree more with you. You've got to act, and you could always start small, start something part-time on the weekends, on evenings, but just get out there and do something.
So here's my thought. You're probably a person that you do things and people look at you and go, how does this guy Rob just do this? Like, so there's probably some inherent pieces that have naturally become instinctual actions that most people aren't doing. What are a few things that people notice you do that you might even be like, why does everybody do this? That's the key to my success. Is it an action? Is it a habit? Is it conversations? Is it a way you frame things? Because I know there's some nuances that are different about me that are probably different about you, but they allow you to get some success where most people are consistently hitting walls.
Yeah, well, I'm a big believer in frameworks, Anthony. If there's something that I'm going to do, I make sure that there's a framework and a regimen and a discipline, because I think, the most valuable thing for all of us, especially as you start to have some level of success, is your time. And so what you have to do is make sure that you're managing your time correctly. And so I start every single day with one of these note cards on my desk of the things that I'm going to accomplish. And no matter what, yeah, exactly. At the end of the day, do I always accomplish all those things? Absolutely not. But I'll do a check at the end of the day to see if I didn't hit one or two of those things, why? And if it was something that took me off of what my purpose, mission, or objective was, I'll make sure that I cut those things out of my life. So I don't check my own email. There's a lot of things that I've learned over time through constantly diagramming what I'm doing, having, daily check-ins and then weekly check-ins to keep myself accountable. Because I think success comes down to four things: focus, clarity, execution, and accountability. Meaning first, you got to know what you want to do in general. A lot of people are barbers and they're selling real estate on the side. You can't do that. You got to dial it in on one thing. Then when you get that clarity, so if you decide your focus is you want to be a realtor, okay, where are you going to be a realtor? What area are you going to specialize in? Is it going to be homes over $3 million? And then once you have that focus and clarity, you need to have a path to execute. And then finally, you need to have someone hold you accountable. You were a professional athlete. I was a Division I athlete. Like, I know how to work out. I know how to eat. However, when left to my own device, if somebody's not there pushing me, I'm not going to do all the things I need to do. I'm not going to achieve that highest level. So you need to bring in that level of accountability. But that starts for the greatest people with yourself. So I'm first self-accountable. And then I've got a board and mentors that are also holding me accountable. But I think those are the four things that I've always focused on that have really kind of helped me continue to level up.
I like it, man. You're speaking my language, dog. It's funny is whenever people don't realize about athletes, but when you're an athlete, you work hard. But that's what you do. You work hard. You don't plan hard. They don't teach us to plan our day.
Right.
You're here at 6 o'clock. You do this at 7:30. I'm like, can I just go do my own thing? Like, you never have the time to do that. Then you're kicked out. It's like, all right, go live a life. And it's like, oh, what do I do? And you're right, man. At the same time, I was one of the highest level athletes in the world. But you still need someone that can see the field when you're looking at what's just right in front of you. Like I see this guy, I can take him out, but the coach sees the whole field. That dynamic is big. And I think most people think it's an ego thing. Like, oh, I don't need anybody to coach me. Like, no, right. Shut up. Tom Brady had a coach, man. Like, everybody's got someone to give them some guidance and build up. So what's if we look at the world you work in now, right? There's some, obviously you work in the wealth management area and there's companies you got going on. What are some of the most kind of close to your heart, passionate things that you do daily now? I love that you don't do the email. I'm not there yet of not looking at my own email. I wish it was the case. I heard that. I'm like, this man's a crazy man. I love it. So what are some things you have as passion work you do now?
Yeah, so I think it's really my Wealth Academy, and that's something I started a couple of years ago when I sold my wealth management firm, and it's really teaching people how to manage their own wealth, how to build businesses themselves. A lot of people over the 20 years that I had my firm being on television, they'd come to me like, Rob, hey, what's the latest stock pick? Or how do I do this? Or what's, what is some one thing I can do to get wealthy? And the reality is, especially, we just talked about if you're starting from nothing, you're not going to real estate or stock market your way to wealth. For me, it was the businesses that I built, first creating the cash flow that I never would have been paid by anybody else, and then creating value in that business to be able to sell that's really what, allowed me to achieve that, what I can do. And, I'm nobody special. Most people aren't. God gave us all the same ability. Most of us, as long as we're built with 2 arms, 2 legs, to go out there and do the same things that you and I have. However, a lot of people aren't given access to that information. And so what I try to do is empower people through my academy, even with my book at a much lower price point, with the knowledge and information to get out there and do things themselves. And when you see people start that first business, I've had entrepreneurs now, that a few in my academy that bought their first home this year. For me, that's, I don't want to say it's altruistic, because it's not. They're paying to be in my academy. But those are the things, seeing other people win at this stage in my life, that quite honestly, I get more excited sometimes about their wins than I do my own, because, like I said, I'm accountable to myself, and I'm probably my own worst critic. But when I see somebody else go out there and win, that's kind of what gets me energized today, Anthony.
I get it, man. I have a speaking coaching business, right? I teach people how to build a business around speaking. It's the same thing. People go, well, if you're still speaking or making competition, I go, no, man, I got 24 stages I'm gonna do this year. There's millions every year. Like, I'm good, But there is
exactly.
a feeling I achen it to, like, let's say I'm starving, me and you were hungry, and we got 10 hamburgers.
Yeah.
Like, I eat one, good, right? But then, like, the marginal utility at like 3, I'm like, bro, I can't have any more hamburgers, right? But I still want to feel good. Giving them away to hungry people is a good thing, right? That's kind of
right.
the weird metaphor I've come up with. And I'm trying to hand out hamburgers, bro. Like, can I get one to you? And so you kind of build some awesome. When people come into the program, which I heard you say their first home, in my head, I was thinking like, oh, he's going to teach people how to build wealth who are already wealthy, right? It sounds like you're working with everybody. Like, who is the most ideal person that gets into this wealth management or this wealth academy you have? Sorry.
Yeah, no, today it's people that, the vast majority of people are new entrepreneurs. So they just try to start a business, or, there's somebody who's thinking about starting a business, but they don't know how to do it, where to start, where to get funding, what a business plan even looks like. So really, for me, it's just more about attitude. I don't care how much you're worth, but it's that attitude to where you've got to know what you don't know, and we all don't know something. And you've really got to be able to put in the work, because I don't want anyone coming to my academy thinking it's going to be easy. This isn't a get rich quick scheme where I'm going to tell you how to day trade your way to success. But however, I'm going to teach you the foundational things that you need to know, to where you don't need to go and get an MBA. You don't need to do a lot of these things that, I had to do back in the day, because, these mentorships, YouTube really weren't available at that time. So what I try to do is take my 22 years of experience in business, 4 college degrees that I have, take all the good actionable stuff and break that down to people in a way that are easy to digest. And most importantly, like we've been talking about, hold them accountable to go out there and do something. So the people that bought homes at the beginning of the year, what are you going to do personally this year? What are you going to do professionally this year? When you say it out loud and someone's there breathing over your neck to make sure you do it, you tend to have greater success in doing those things. So really, it's for anybody who's willing to put in the work and who's interested in building a business and personal wealth.
I like that, man. It makes you have to get into action, right? 'Cause a lot of people have aspirations and dreams and goals, but they end up getting in their own way. Like, oddly enough, it's
right.
The whole, like, let me think about it. Like, you thinking about it is your brain will naturally do what it needs to do to feel comfortable. It's what it's designed. We're designed to adapt. The brain's not designed to optimize. It's actually designed to adapt. And so, a lot of people go, I got this cool dream, but you put them in a position and go, look, let's get this thing moving. That's kind of what we do. Like, you have to, in the world of what I do for speakers, like, the idea of speaking is amazing. They get in a phone. It's like, all right, here's an investment to actually make that happen. They go, oh, they're butt puckers, like, oh, I'm gonna be on stage. What do you mean that? Because that's where dreams are built, man. When you look at because you're a guy that's accomplished a lot, and people look at individuals who've accomplished a lot and go, man, they got this. It's all in the bag. They're just chilling. What gives you tension nowadays? What creates? I don't want to say fear. I doubt the word would be fear. But what gives you pause? What puts you in a position of, like, having we'll call this, amplify yourself to be the best of yourself, because there's a little bit of pressure?
Yeah, well, look, I mean, I think, Anthony, I've had the, great fortune to be surrounded by some really high level athletes, people like Tim Grover. That's a friend of mine who worked with some of the best. Like, and I see what these people have accomplished, and I look at them, and if you ask any of these guys like Tim, like, are you done? Have you finished? Have you, achieved success? They will absolutely laugh at you. And so when I look at, have I had some success? Only reason I say yes is because I don't want to seem ungrateful. I have achieved a lot. God given me a lot in my life. So I am grateful for it, but I don't feel like I'm pounding myself on the back. And I know the potential that I have is way above what I've done today. Until someone can say, go down the street and there's going to be one or two people that'll say, hey, Rob Luna was responsible for giving me this information to buy my first house or create my business. Most people still don't know about me. So that's a great opportunity, because if you believe in the ability that you have to impact people's lives greater than someone else, it is your obligation to get out there and reach and help as many people as possible. Yeah. And I don't think when it comes to that, I've even scratched the surface. And so why am I even here today? Why do you do the things you do today? Because by talking to you, if I get introduced to 2 or 3 new people and one of those is able to either do something themselves or pass my name on to somebody else that changes their life, this is my mission every day, to what more people know about what we're doing.
I like it, man. And I fully grasp that. It's kind of the same. It is a certain level that there's never there's almost like I enjoy putting the puzzle together more than the accomplished puzzle, right? Like everybody, like, oh, it's cool. Like, yeah, when it's put together, then you're just big chilling, right? But the idea is like, I'm a puzzle maker, right? Or I'm a puzzle doer. I want to do the puzzle as much as I can and frequently as I can. But in that, here's the thing. I'll put it like this. I go hop on stages. I get paid real well to do it. I have, this is weird to say, at this point in time, the amount I get paid to do a speech, it's good. It's one of the top 1% in the country, but it doesn't challenge me the way it used to when I first started. Let's put it that way. So for me, I love the feeling before a game, like that tickle, like, oh God, I can't mess this up, right? I'm going to find that way to pull it out of me. I could walk out this door right now and kill it on a stage, even literally right now. But I want that one that makes me have pause, makes me really dive in and do the best I can. What's that look like for you? Not a stage maybe, but like, where's a space of life where you're going like, I do this and it's comfortable and I can do it without question. It's a great value to the world, but I want to challenge myself for this next level.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. And I mean, it comes down to, and I think because I've seen it in other people as I start to achieve more wealth in my own life, the things that drive you and motivate you and make you happy are completely different. I think the greatest definition that I've ever heard of happiness is that, the correlation of your own happiness is the correlation to your personal growth. So I feel like as human beings, we've always got to be growing. And I think the areas that we get comfortable in are probably the areas that we're going to continue to kind of push back and not want to do as much. So like I said, I sold my firm 3 years ago. My average client had 20 million in investable assets with us. I loved doing it at first, the first 10, 15 years, going out there, getting this new client. My biggest client ever brought in $120 million. Couldn't, wait to get home, tell my wife about it, all these things. But then eventually it's like some of those same successes and wins that you have kind of become your downfall. You're not as excited to talk to that person when they come into your office. You don't get as motivated by it anymore. And that's really why I think when you get to that point in your life, no matter what it is you're doing, when you look at yourself in the mirror one too many times and say, what the hell am I doing today? It's really time to move on and let somebody else come in. And that's why I sold the firm. And so what I'm doing today, quite honestly, is the exact opposite. When I was dealing with multimillionaires, today I'm dealing with people who might not have $500 to invest, but to me, that's a much bigger challenge. If someone brings me 25 million to get them to 40 to 50 million, a lot of people can do that. But if someone brings me nothing and needs to build a business worth 3, 5, or 10 million in the next 5 to 10 years, that's pretty challenging. It's not hard. And that's kind of what gets me out of bed. That's what I'm looking at in the team that I'm building, or who are those people that can help that type of person get to that next level. So that's what's driving me today.
I like that. That's a really good perspective, man. And I like the word you put in there that made sense was the challenge of it all. I think that's what it is, the challenge of it all. Yeah. And then you get to show up and you got to find out the best of what you got that may be dormant, that you haven't touched base with in a long time. So that answers my question very well. And I appreciate that, because that is, I think that as human beings, aside from what it is we do, there's a kind of an emotion of feel that we like to get into in the pocket we get into, and we can't get into the same one. We do need to re-challenge ourselves in a different way. So I like that one, man. So I want to take a step back from, like, they'll call it the business side, just a little bit, the human of you, right? Because you have a family, you have a cool thing you do. Like, how does all this stuff connect to that world, that legacy, that purpose? So like at some point in time when, you've decided to go ahead and go home, we'll call it, what do you want to have behind you?
Yeah, well, look, at the end of the day, first, I'm a Christian, first and foremost, that's my mission, is to be a Christian, whether I'm in church on Sundays, I'm on this podcast, I'm working with other people. And so that's kind of my ultimate calling. And Next to that, I'm a husband and I'm a father. And I think that's going to be my greatest legacy. It's not going to be the amount of money that I've been able to accumulate. It's not going to be the businesses that I have, but it's going to be the impact that I've had on people. And I think that starts with your own family. So I think, the thing for me, Anthony, as a Christian, every single day, I'm trying to become the best version of myself. Just like I said, in business, there's a lot of room for growth. Personally, there's a lot of room for growth. So spirituality, health, all those things, time with my family. And when I say time with my family, I mean without this, like disconnecting from that. There's a saying, be where your feet are. That's the point in life right now where I'm really trying to be where my feet are, because, I have a 16-year-old daughter, is my oldest right now. And I feel like I'm a much better dad today than I was the first 5-10 years of her life, because even though I was there, and maybe sometimes there even more often, I wasn't mentally there. So I think for me, that's really what I'm focusing on today, is how do I become a better Christian father and husband? And I think the rest really kind of takes care of itself if you can focus on those things. That's, kind of what does it for me today.
I get it, man. I'm in the same boat. I think there's something to that. I call it season of dad as best I can. Be like, I'm present. I'm here. Like I could, if I wanted to, I could be on the road every week. I could find a way to tell my team, hey guys, spend a bunch of speeches, travel places, do stuff. But I actively try to make sure that I can do things in the morning with my kids. My wife takes them to school, I pick them up. I'm dad, I'm coaching. And there is something to that. There's something that I've always looked like this. I want my kids to want to come home for the holidays. That's what it is.
Right.
That's what
well, let me ask you, were you that same person 10 years ago?
Oh, hell no. No, at one point, my wife and I got divorced. A whole lot of things went crazy with that. We're now remarried after 3 years divorce. But I think a lot of the pieces was just the way that I had my relationship with work was more important than my relationship with home.
And see, that's the thing. And I'll also submit that there's probably a level of financial security that you've been able to create for yourself today that was different than it was a decade ago. And I think, and really, Anthony, at the end of the day, I think why I do what I do is simply because of that. I talk about it in my book. It's not about just collecting comma signs. It's about how do you do the things that you want to do, not because you have to do them. How do you get better health care? How do you get more time with your kids? How do you get better quality of education? The truth is, you have to have more money. That's the sad part about it. So when you try to talk to all these people about these pie in the sky ideas, whether it's spirituality or meditation or all this crap, they can't relate with that stuff. And so my goal is how do I get people to some basic level of financial security to where they feel like those things are meaningful in their life? And if you look at the statistics in this country, Anthony, it's dismal. And so the fact that most people are happy and getting divorced and out of shape and all these things isn't necessarily because they want to be that way. It's because the way that capitalism is set up, you have to win. And you can fight against that and have all these philosophical differences. But the reality is, we're all running out of time. We're all getting older. And the field and the rules that we need to play, you played in the NFL, you might not agree with all of them, but those are the rules. You can fight that long-term game of changing them. But if you want to succeed today, you need to know how to adapt and be the best player in that league within those rules possible. And that's what I'm trying to do, is help people with that stuff, not to get more money, but to get just what you said, better relationship with their wife, better relationship with their husband, with their kids, with their church, whatever it is. That's really what money's about.
I agree, man. It's funny is that's kind of that's for sure. You touched on the thing that for me has become much, it's that ties into why I can do this, right? We have people working on our house right now and I'm able to do this. It's not because I'm working, right? It's because there's things that have been set in place and designed that way. But it's interesting because I grew up in a realm where that was not the case. I grew up same as poor. I was adopted by a really poor all white family and I'd have a whole lot of weird stuff take place. But here's the interesting thing is there was never a conversation about money as a kid growing up. Never. And it was just always, if it was framed negatively. And even now, my siblings, we don't talk too much about it. And they get uncomfortable when I do. And I go, look, the only reason I do is because we never did. I don't believe that if you don't talk about something, you can't learn about it. If you don't learn about it, you can't get great at it. And so, the people you're talking to, I just realize how much even more of a challenge is, because there's probably an interesting money relationship they have that also bars having that growth relationship you're talking to. That's a tough one.
No, for sure. A friend of mine, Dan Fleischman, I'm not sure if you know Dan, he just started his own podcast about 10 months ago. I can't remember this. It's a money podcast, but his basic premise is it's not okay not to talk about money. And so getting people to talk about money is what opens them up to generating some wealth themselves, which, like I said, in this country, you have to have a certain level of financial comfort to be able to be the best version of yourself, unfortunately. But it's not going to change.
Yeah, but I don't know if unfortunately is the word. Like, it just is. That's what it is. Like, it's
It's what it is, right?
it's been ingrained in this weird thing where like it's bad to want money. And for a lot of years I didn't want. I was like, I don't want to be the guy that wants money. And I go, no, I do. Because here's also what I realized.
Right.
What of what I do, I go and speak and hop on a stage. They have a budget. There's money already there, but like it's like I want to make sure I give so much value. They want to reciprocate me at that level. So I realized, oh well, if you're giving something to the world of value, even if it's you're giving your time to help somebody, right? You can get the reciprocation in a financial manner, but you just got to give to the world, give the best of you to the world, and then it's good money earned.
Well, and that's a great perspective that you just gave, Anthony, because I think that's kind of a lost art. I think too many people go into entrepreneurism or they become an employee at a job and they're looking at what's in it for me, what can I get back? And when you don't kind of take a look at living in somebody else's shoes and understanding, and I do the same thing, if somebody's going to pay me a good amount of money to go and speak to their company or get on stage and talk to people, I want them to leave with something of action. Like I love motivation, but if I can get you excited without an action plan to do something to change your life, you're going to be in the same situation. So I always want to understand who is the audience, what do they need, and how can I bring something out of my toolbox to give to them that when they leave, they're able to do something that's going to better themselves. And so I think, like I said, a lot, and I don't want to beat up on the younger generation because the older generation beat up on my generation and all those things. However, what I will say, with these phones and everything, we're getting so disconnected from people because we can text and all these things that we're really forgetting. It's all about if you want to be successful in business, how do you make the other person's life better? And when you commit to that, you're going to get all the things that you need yourself. So I think that's a great perspective you shared.
Yeah, man. And same wavelength. Actually, I do these things where I remind myself, I have signs that I get made and sent to me from these custom sign places. Like as I will launch my new brand called Dark Work, it literally is a sign that says develop dominators' identities. That's my everyday reminder where I'm helping people develop these identities for themselves. It's literally right over there. It's like 6 feet from me. But that's my focus. And when that happens to become my focus to serve the people, and people hear this all the time, but don't tap into what I'm saying. When your goal is to serve somebody, genuinely create something for them, it flows, man. And then it comes to pass because it's not about what can I get from it. You'll get what you get because of what you give.
That's exactly it. I mean, I think what you're doing with people, public speaking, it's kind of a double whammy because when you are helping people, I truly believe, and even if you didn't set out in business, even if you went in there for greed, but when you start seeing that what you're doing is actually helping and improving people's lives, and then you're able to improve your own life from the money that delivers, that's one thing that public speaking is going to be able to do that not every job does. So once they get out there and do that and see their impact, and they actually look at their bank account and they're getting paid for it, that's where that happiness kicks in. And I think that's something that you're giving them that's going to be, a great reward. So that's pretty cool if those people are able to do that. But I also would probably imagine it's not one of the easiest things. So talking about challenges, I'm sure you're being challenged in the work that you're doing today.
Always are. I mean, that's the nature of it though. But after a certain point in time, you realize like, I got this. Like it's, my buddy calls it Cadillac problems. He goes, we all got problems. He says, but you want Cadillac problems, which means the same way everybody else feels, but I got better shocks to handle it. So after a while, dude, I've really thoroughly enjoyed having this chat with you. So 2 questions as we conclude our time together. First one is, where do I send people to get access to you, the Wealth Academy, all the fun things you do?
Yeah, I make it really easy. If you just go to robluna.com, ROBLUNA, we've got everything linked from there so you can get access to me. And check out my book. It's on Amazon, Close Your Wealth Gap. Talks about a lot of the things in greater detail that I've been talking about with a lot of action plans. That would be a good first step as well.
I like it, man. And you mentioned earlier the framework portion of it. That's how I live my life. It might be the football guy in me, like the playbook. I need that. I don't like to wander out and do park football. But life needs those. If you plan them, if you guys can like yourself has already got one, you can take that and apply it to your life. Maybe shortcut the path to whatever success you want or close a wealth gap. There you go. I like it. Final question. What promise did God make to the world when he created you?
What promise did God? That's a tough one. The promise he made is that he will do everything within his power if you're willing to put in the work to help change your life. I think that's the promise that he made.
It's a good one, man. So that's a solid promise right there. I'll take that one. I like it. Seriously appreciate your time coming and hanging with me. I know it's not something that's just easy to do to give your time to somebody, but I appreciate it and hope you appreciate it as well. Those you guys who are all tuned in and hanging out with us, two things. One, you learned something here. I don't know exactly what it was. Whatever it was, apply it. It's just one thing. Put it into your life. Take an action towards it. Don't just be a person that hears something, doesn't do anything. Two, if you know someone who needs to hear what Rob just said, share this podcast with them. Sometimes a click of a button can change somebody's life quite literally. So do that. And make sure to go to robluna.com to find out all the cool things and next steps you can take to close your wealth gap. Make sure to get his book. And outside of that, as always, make the most of your shift moments so you can make shift happen. It's Anthony Trucks and Rob Luna signing off. Hey, thank you for tuning into the Shift podcast. I pray that we gave something amazing to your life. And if you found this episode served you in some way, I would love if you could share it with people you know, people you love, as well as your community, because you never know who needs that simple little seed that can grow into something amazing for their life. And the actual training doesn't stop here. If you want your free copy of the show notes sent to you after every episode so you can get the major points consolidated down, simply go to textanthony.com and message the word notes. Till next time, make shift happen.